Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again because we finished up Captain's Table Book 1 of 6, War Dragons by L.A. Graf. Um, this has been really fun. I particularly enjoy the first person style that it's written in. It's like a complete break, from any other Trek book that I've read so far. So this has been great, and also the fact that it's I like that they started out with a, kind of a two captain team, intertwining this kind of story that weaves together. So very good, very fun. Took me forever to read, and I'm blaming that on the holiday season, right? Because things always just seem to go like, and like everything goes much faster, and you have less time to read. And then when you should be reading, instead you're just like sitting there doing this, like blankly staring off into space because you're tired, right? Anyway, I have decided that since I finished this, we are going to take one of our Trek breaks that we do every now and then, and I'm going to dive wholeheartedly into this bad boy right here, which we'll talk about later. Right now, we're talking about Star Trek: The Captain's Table. This concept, just like the last New Frontiers book series I was reading, also was created by John J. Ordover and Dean Wesley Smith. And what they've done here is brought a whole bunch of authors together from the Star Trek world, and each of them, gets to tell a story from the captain's point of view. So, interesting note about the cover here too. Let's see if we can make that a little bit bigger. If you look in the background right there, that I believe next to that Romulan or Vulcan is one of the authors of the book. Apparently, if you look at like the whole gallery edition or whatever, the whole thing at once, all the authors there are painted into the background as well. So that'll be something to look forward to as we move forward and finish this. Now let's jump to the back cover here. There's a bar called the Captain's Table, where those who have commanded mighty vessels of every shape and era can meet, relax, and share a friendly drink or two with others of their calling. Sometimes a brawl may break out, but it's all in the family, more or less. Just remember, the first round of drinks is always paid for with a story, even beyond the final frontier. Star Trek: The Captain's Table, Book 1 of 6, War Dragons. Captain James T. Kirk must join forces with Captain Hikaru Sulu, new commander of the USS Excelsior, to resolve a simmering political situation in a distant star system. For more than 20 years, the ancient enmity between the Nikus and Anjiri has resisted the best efforts of Federation diplomats. Now Kirk and Sulu have one last chance to end the bloodshed before it erupts into a full-scale interstellar war. The person who wrote the back cover didn't actually read the book because there was no diplomatic effort with the Federation trying to fix things up between the Nikus and the Anjiri. And in fact, the whole thing was kind of a mystery that was resolved, kind of like not until just the end. So, sometimes these back covers can be okay. Sometimes they can just be way, way off base. So, and that one was kind of way off base there too. So, anyway, let's have a look at the notes we took. Look at this. Boy, this is how you know I'm ready for a break. Taking bad notes, slacking off on my reading. So, like I said, after this, we're going to take our little Star Trek break. But first, let's talk about the War Dragons. And who are the War Dragons? So, the story starts out, again, it's a two-part story. And it actually starts out at the Mars shipbuilding facility, Utopia Planitia, right? Where Captain Kirk is going to introduce Captain Sulu to a fine place to pass the time while they're waiting for their next mission or waiting for their first officer or whatever it may be. And this happens to be the Captain's Table, which is this bar that kind of nobody knows about until you know about it. And it's only for captains, and it doesn't matter what kind of captain you are. As long as you're the captain of some kind of ship, you're welcome to come into the Captain's Table. And as they said on the back, the currency of the Captain's Table is a story, right? They want to have a nice story. So it's a very fun setup. And as I was reading in the Fantastic Voyages of the Imagination, the book about books, um, this was kind of set up as an idea that was in other sci-fi things. You know, this kind of mysterious place that always showed up when you need it, something like that. So, and it was something that hadn't been done before in Trek, so they wanted to bring it in. So, uh, as of just with the first story, man, what a fun idea, right? So I'm definitely looking forward to getting to see the other captains and their stories, right? But right now, Kirk and Sulu. So anyway, they're in there, introduced to the place, and now they're going to be telling their stories. Kirk goes first, and he tells of his first meeting with these Angiri. And the Angiri, basically, they picked them up, they rescued them from a derelict ship, and they appeared to be nothing but kind of like scavengers, you know. And they're like a lizard-like race, right? They took them to an Orion base, so they could kind of, you know, offload them there. And then these Angiri took over an Orion yacht and absconded with it, right? So then the Enterprise chases them back to their home planet, where they kind of find out what's going on with these Angiri and how they send out these, you know, scavenger parties, and that's how they build their world. Their world is kind of this amalgamation of these different ships all kind of welded together, you know, and that's how they live and build their habitats, right? So you have a fun little kind of scene here, really highlighting Uhura and how awesome she is, that she's able to go with Kirk into the stronghold, basically, and kind of work a deal with these Angiri to stay out of their sector of space, right? And then the story jumps forward 20 years later, and you have Sulu, who's now in the command of the Excelsior, and one of his first missions is to transport these stealth craft, these FL-70 Falcons. But in the process of loading them onto the ship, they are attacked by the Angiri, and the stealth craft are stolen, and also Chekhov, who is now Sulu's first officer, is taken as well. So they set out after them, and they kind of learn that they are on their way to a Klingon research facility, and because Chekhov tricked them, right? Chekhov was like, you know, go to this Klingon research facility, they'll have some really good tech for you there. One of the things that this book does really well, it kind of dives into Chekhov's, his history, his PTSD, really, after everything that happened with Reliant and Khan being thrust into, put into second command again, and now he has this happen to him. You know, now he's lost people as well on this mission. He's been taken captive, but everything I think that they do with him is very good in this too. Like the whole Chekhov arc, even though it's not like the big part of the book, I think it was really well done. So, anyway, yeah. So they're going there to the. Oh, and the Excelsior is out of commission too at this point, so they have to do like a kind of like a double-pronged attack where they have an extra large shuttlecraft aboard the Enterprise, who's rendezvoused with the Excelsior at this point, and they have to do two missions basically. They send Sulu, I think, with Sulu and Uhura are being sent back to the home planet to find out what is going on. Why have the Angiri broken this 20-long-year truce that they've had, right? So they're going back to the home planet, while the Enterprise is going to set course for the set course for the Klingon research facility to hopefully catch up with the Angiri, who are actually, I haven't even got into the whole Angiri thing yet, but to catch up with them before they get there. So this is where you have like the two parts of the stories kind of intertwining now, and I really liked how, I liked seeing Sulu as a captain. I guess I would like to see more of that, more like Sulu books if there is such a thing. There was even a nice little spot for Tuvok to make an appearance in this book, which I thought was great. But anyway, Uhura, they get to the planet, and they find it kind of like devastated. Something obviously has happened there. They get to, they find a way in, and that's when they meet up with the kind of like the matriarchs of that society, and they explain what has happened, which is basically the Angiri and the Nicus are one and the same species, and they are all basically just, it depends on how warm their egg is, basically, and that determines whether you're going to be an Angiri, whether you're going to be a Nicus. And what they did in some of these, basically there was some Nicus that were born that were like warm-blooded, which gave them like additional smarts or something like that. So they kind of led this revolt against everyone else. They destroyed the Angiri, and basically also destroyed like the ability for the species to procreate. And then they took off, right? And these are the ones that have attacked the Excelsior. These are the ones that have stolen the ships, and these are the ones that are on their way to the Klingon colony now, or the Klingon research facility, to cause trouble there. So back to the Klingon research facility. Kirk gets there in the Enterprise, but the Klingons are not happy, and they have this kind of subspace disruptor, which is what they've been working on there at the facility, right? So they arm this thing and they fire it, and kind of everything in the general area is knocked out of commission. So they have to get aboard the ship, which they do, and then they get to the Klingons, who have kind of secured themselves away in like a force-fielded area, and the Klingons tell them, basically you got one shot at this, you're going to need to shut down the shields, everybody needs to get beamed out before the other Klingons get here, so we can tell them that you actually are here to help us and not, you're not the ones that instigated this attack. So that's what they do. They find them, they work their way to the towards like the shield generator room. However, they are attacked and Kirk is knocked out. It's Kirk and Chekhov here at this point, I believe. When he wakes up, it's about 20 minutes later, and they are in like the main den of the leaders of this rebellion of the Nicus, right? And this is another great part. You get your classic kind of like Kirk talking his way through it, right? And he's able to, trick them into letting him lower the shields. They all get beamed out to safety. Back on the Angiri home world, Sulu is negotiating with like the matriarchs of this society, and they are incredibly smart. Like they are much more advanced than he kind of thinks that they would be at this point, right? And they agree to come with him, because if they don't bring these Nicus back to the planet, then their whole species is doomed. They no longer have the ability to lay eggs without this like group of 20 or something males that have left, right? So they have to go with them. So they get into their extra large shuttlecraft and they take off after the Enterprise. And by the time they get to the Enterprise, kind of things have resolved themselves to a point there. Except now we have an additional character, Koloth has shown up, and he is basically demanding justice. He wants to take them and execute them for their attack against the facility, for their destruction of a Klingon cruiser or something like that. But now that the matriarchs or whatever are here, they can, they demand they want to have their own justice done upon them. And Koloth is like, well, this sounds okay to me, we can do this. So they agree to do that, and they beam over basically the initial 6 or 7 of the rebels to battle against the matriarchs, and they have this crazy fight scene, which like at some point goes faster than they can even see what's going on. And in the end, the rebels choose not to submit, so they're killed. But then the next group, which is kind of like the younger males, they immediately submit, and the situation was resolved. The Klingons are happy to have seen a fight, so they're kind of satisfied with everything, and the situation was resolved to everyone's happiness. So, it's a fun ending. There's a lot that I'm not getting into here that I could go into, but one of the best parts about this is just how well it intertwines. And L.A. Graph, of course, is a pseudonym. It is 2 authors. Oh, goodness. And, of course, I don't have it right here in front of me. But we're going to find it. And what I liked about this is initially they didn't want to do it because of the way they normally write. But then they were told that it was going to be, they could do 2 different writers, or 2 different perspectives. So you have Karen Rose Curzon and Julia Eklar, and I'm probably saying that wrong, that wrote this. And it's kind of great how they both weave these stories together. And I've liked a lot of the stuff that they've written. So they do great Star Trek work, of course. So yeah, that was War Dragons. The book ends with a lot more than just the end of that story. It actually jumps right into the next one, which is the Captain Picard story, and how he gets introduced to the captain's table, gets into a little bit of a fencing match, and then has to begin to tell his story, which is going to be some sort of romantic adventure, is what the patrons of the captain's table are looking for at this point. So, and then after that, even there is a nice little section, which is written by Michael Jan Friedman, where you get in basically an autobiography of James T. Kirk, and then of course a much shorter one of Sulu. So just a lot of little extra little bits that they threw in there, which was pretty nice. But all in all, the captain's table was fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to see all the other captain stories. Do they tie together? Is this going to be 6 separate stories, or is there going to be one theme? Don't tell me. These are rhetorical questions, but we're going to find out. But we're not going to find out for a little bit, because you know why? That's right. We're going to read this bad boy first. So before I get into any more Star Trek, we're going to spend a good bit of time with my good friend Alexander Dumas and the Count of Monte Cristo. Definitely one of my favorite books, and as you can see, quite worn. This is the gigantic extended Robin Buss edition, which is awesome. And again, we'll jump into that, but don't worry. We'll be back with more Star Trek books very soon. As always, my friends, thanks for hanging out. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you in the next one.